Hey, what's going on, y'all? So today, another day, another blessing, another day above ground is always a blessing. We know this, man. We know this. Tonight, I want to talk about God being on time, ahead of time. I hear it a lot. I hear all the time how a lot of people say, "Oh, God is on time. God is always on time," and I'm like, "No, God is not on time. God is ahead of time." You know who's on time? Us, when we are obedient. That is who's on time. In order for us to receive the blessings, we have to be obedient. We have to be aligned with the path that God designed for us. Now, the thing is this. Anytime I speak about this type of stuff and I share these type of things, understand this is my revelation. This is just my revelation. Nothing's written in stone. I'm just sharing revelation to inspire, to motivate other people. Now, I want to share with y'all how God is so ahead of time. We see it in scripture. I'm reading Genesis 45, and as we know, when the Israelites was in the wilderness, and you see how God was in a cloud, he was in this pillar, he was moving ahead of the Israelites, and you see it over and over. Even in Exodus 23, verse 20, where he says, I'm going to send my angel ahead of you. Ahead of you. Then you read Genesis 45. It says, when Joseph revealed himself to his brothers, and it says, Joseph said to his brothers, come close to me. When they have done so, he said, I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourself for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. So God is ahead of time. Listen, we're never going to understand how God really fully operate. Sometimes it may be confusing. Sometimes it may be a blur. But we know that God is moving. God is working. God is doing something ahead of us. And it's us that have to be obedient to walk into that blessing. It's like Sonic. You ever play Sonic? When Sonic be running around and you see the rings in front of him and he got a ding, 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 ding. It's just like that. God designed a path for us. And that path is narrow. We know this. That path is narrow. It's not easy. I'm gonna be honest with you. I struggle with some things myself. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And I wanna let y'all know that path is very narrow. And what happens a lot of the time is a lot of people start off really good on the path, and then they start seeing other pathways. They start seeing other signs and say, oh, shortcut. Shortcut to get this blessing. A shortcut to get that blessing. And then people are like, oh, okay, I'm gonna veer off and go here. And then you go into the wilderness where there's snakes, lions, bears, tigers, spiders, all types of predatory things. And when they go into this wilderness, now they end up getting lost. And a lot of the time, people don't call on the Lord because they're too busy trying to veer back into that path that the Lord has designed. And when you veer off that path, now you are now leaning on your own understanding. And this is the thing. When people go into the wilderness, they forget that God had already packed them a whole safety kit. And they don't even know that there's a flare gun right in their bag, and all they got to do is just sound it off. And the Lord will come and he'll help them get right back on that path. But a lot of the time, people don't ever go through the bag because they just lean on their own understanding, right? But anyway, when we are on that path, it is then when we are able to receive those blessings. We have to be aligned. God already set the blessings for us. That's why we have to focus on Christ, because when we focus on Christ, everything else corrects. Everything else corrects. I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy, bro. I know it is not easy. But when we stay on that path and we stay aligned, it is then we are able to receive those blessings that God has set for us. It says that there's 1,000 years in a day to the Lord. 1,000 years in a day. I remember I spoke about this in this class that my church had provided. It was called Able to Teach. And I remember he told us to get up on stage and, make a 5-minute sermon about a scripture that he had given us. And I had Colossians, I believe, talking about being buried with Christ, and talking about baptism. And I was saying, it was saying that there's 1,000 years in a day. And most time when people think when you get baptized, they think that's all just, you get dipped in the water. But if it says that there's 1,000 years in a day, how many years is in a moment when you are buried with Christ? That's amazing. Something is being done while you are in that water spiritually. Something is being done. And we have to understand that this is not just a regular baptism. Now we understand baptism is an outwardly expression of your inward commitment. However, when you are buried with Christ, and it says that there's 1,000 years in a day to the Lord, what is happening? There's restoration happening. There's bondage being broken. There's so many things that is happening, even though you might have dipped in that water for maybe about like 5-10 seconds. But something amazing is happening. That's why when most people come out, they feel lighter. They feel lighter. Chains have been broken. There has been spiritual bondage that have been that fell off. And I'm a testimony, man. I felt light when I came out of that water, bro. It was amazing. But I wanted to share that with y'all. God is ahead of time. I know a lot of times it may seem confusing. It may seem like a blur, and you might want to lean on your own understanding because maybe you have been disappointed in your previous time. But I want to let you know, God is working. Just trust in Him. Just trust in Him. Just be patient. Have a good night. I love y'all.